All right, everyone. Let me make sure this thing is on and recording. It looks like we are. Hello. Obviously, it's Tyler, and I might be a little late to practice today, so I'm filming a little something I wanted to go over with you all today, which is a judge adaptation lecture. If you haven't seen the topic lecture that I gave previously, I would suggest watching that in conjunction with this video, maybe before or after. But yeah, let's get into judge adaptation. So the reason we're going over judge adaptation right now is because, quite frankly, Stanford, Berkeley, UNLV, Miller North tournaments that we have coming up are very, very what's the word? Mixed judge pools. You're going to have some judges that are incredibly flow orientated. You're also going to have some lay judges, and you're also going to have some flay judges. But the lay judges that we're going to be having at these tournaments are notoriously individuals who have English as their second language and all these other things. So we should really, really try and go over some stuff in order to win over these lay judges. So let's just go over some general advice that we can apply across the board for any kind of judge that you may have. So number one is how to act and interact with your opponents. Um, the first thing that you need to remember is that 99% of judges will like to see a professional attitude and kindness within a debate round, and that goes for all three different categories of PF judges. Those three categories are lay, flow, and flay. Flay is probably a fake category, but in terms of PF, it is indeed a category itself. We'll go over what those categories look like, but the most important part, regardless of what judge you're debating in front of, is treating your opponents with respect. It's making sure not to cut them off in crossfire. It's making sure not to be rude to them, not to ask personal and snappy questions, not to cut them off, things like that. Those are going to be really, really important in crossfire. And more importantly, debate is a professional event, and a lot of lay judges and flay judges really think that debate should be a professional activity. It should be like the future lawyers of America, is the phrase that I've heard. And lawyers typically in court, if you see, they don't insult or they don't do anything. They are strictly very professional to your opponents. That comes in decor, that comes in tone, that comes in language choice, precision, everything. Make sure to be nice to your opponents. The second is to be nice to your judge. I don't mean kiss up to your judge and say really incredibly awkward things before the debate round about your judge's political views about what you know about the judge previously, but make sure to follow every accommodation and stipulation that's written on your judge's paradigm, right? So for example, in my paradigm, I have a really large section about how impact calculus is the most important part of public forum debate. It's very well highlighted. So in front of a judge like me, it might be worth it to do extra impact calc and go really, really hard on the impact calc debate to adapt to what I like to see in debate rounds. Another example of how to adapt would be looking at a judge like this. So this is a judge Bob Dolan. Okay, Bob Dolan is a judge in the debate community. He has judged for a long time in the debate community. And the biggest thing about Bob Dolan is that he is notoriously a lay judge, even though he has 30 years of coaching experience. So let's talk about how we would break down this paradigm. So the first thing we would see is that Bob has said almost every round I have judged in the past 5 years would have benefited me from 50% arguments in capital letters. So what do we do in front of Bob Dolan? Maybe we don't read that extra third contention. We condense it into two and go a little bit slower. 100% more analysis. Okay, sure. Maybe we go harder on the analysis section. We do less card extensions and more narrative. I am not a fan of speed nor spreading, so I would read a lay version of the case and not the flow version of the case. Off-time room maps are obviously not necessary, so I should not read those. These are all things that you must do in front of Bob Dolan. So number one, cut down one of your arguments. Number two, don't extend authors, but rather extend maybe the argument and the warrant that the card is making. Go as slow as possible, and more importantly, explain your argument and certainly do impact calc. Bob also has a very large portion about NSDA rules. This shouldn't be a problem for most of us because we cut cards, but in the case that we don't or we decide to paraphrase in this debate round, I would be very, very careful to make sure that we have the proper citation and cut card to back that up. Bob also has an entire section about how he is not impressed by smugness, smiling at stupidity, or vigorous head shaking. So make sure that in front of a judge like Bob, we're limiting all of those extra, we're limiting all those extra superfluous movements. That's going to be really, really important. So another paradigm that I would like you to look over would be on the other side of things. It would be a judge like Kagan Ferguson, who is my high school debate coach. We can obviously see from Kagan's experience in his judging that he's judged lots of policy debate in his career, which probably means he's going to be a very flow judge. Kagan talks about framework versus affirmatives, critiques. He talks about disads, counterplans, topicality. It seems like he's a policy judge, so we should go very, very tech. We scroll down to his PF paradigm. Here's what we should do. In front of Kagan, we should be disclosing, because why wouldn't we want more speaker points? Impact calc is the most important thing. My paradigm says the exact same thing. Impact calc all the way. Warrants beats taglines. Okay, sure. Let's extend taglines of evidence, and let's extend tags, let's extend author names, but more importantly, warrants are going to be most in frontal. You must do the 2-1 split in rebuttal. That means frontlining and also answering their case. You also must keep your evidence in cut card form. These are all things that we're going to have to do in front of a judge like Kagan Ferguson. With that being said, listen to everything that your judge has to say in their paradigm, accommodate them, and they will most likely accommodate you with the W. The third is passion. Being passionate about a subject and seeming really interested in the debate you're having, will most likely keep the judge very interested as well. This is especially important over Zoom, as in virtual debate environments, it is very easy for someone to get distracted. Keep your judges interested in what you have to say. More importantly, as a judge who has judged over 60 debates this season, things that stick out to me in Crossfire are specific languages like judge. This is why his response matters. Get my attention by either saying my name, by implicating a response in Crossfire, by saying that there is a concession in Crossfire that ends the debate round, things like that, right? The other thing that I really like to see in Zoom is if I'm just looking straight forward at my screen, I'll get a notification if the chat goes off. This was recommended by a Wake Forest debater on the team with me, and it's proven really, really successful. Every team that has utilized the chat function in Zoom or the chat function in Google Classroom, or NSDA Classroom, in front of a flow judge has been proven very, very successful because it gets the attention. It gives that notification on the board. It keeps them entertained. It makes them read it because they're curious what you have to say. Instead of just muddled argumentation in Crossfire, now there's like a specific directive that the judge can read. I find that to be very, very distracting, which is why I always end up reading it, which is probably good because it helps. So, we talked a lot earlier about the 3 different kinds of judges. So we have a flow judge, which is with a judge who's going to vote strictly tech over truth. They're going to vote on the line by line. They're going to determine who has won what arguments, why they've won those arguments, etc. A flay judge is someone who falls right in the middle. A flay judge, an example of a flay judge, is maybe someone who it was not a debater themselves, but has been judging for 5 years. So my mom is a great example. I taught my mom how to flow, but she has no traditional debate experience, no debate training. She's never debated herself, but she's a lawyer by trade. She'll take notes and she'll vote on what arguments there are in the debate round, but she won't care about impact calc and weighing. She'll only care about the arguments that are there, which makes her a flay judge. A lay judge, on the other hand, is someone who a flay judge is just basically a combination between a flow and lay judge, someone that has minimal flow training but also comes from a lay background. A lay judge, on the other hand, is someone that has legitimately no or little to no experience judging. Someone who, truthfully, is just a parent. Someone who is a volunteer. Someone who is hired by the tournament that they just got from the local college. These would all be examples of lay judges. And in front of lay judges, we need to go much, much slower. We need to go for every single argument on the flow, and we need to be as clear as possible. With that being said, let's talk about flow judges. Non-negotiable parts from flow judges. Number 1, line by line. You have to do the line by line. You need to answer arguments in the order of which they were presented. You need to extend both the claim, warrant, internal link, and impact into your argument. And you need to weigh. Weighing should be pretty self-explanatory. Magnitude, time frame, probability, any variance of such. Why does your argument come before your opponent's argument? Why should they look to your side of the flow first? Impact comparison. As all of you know, debate is a game of impacts. Which impact is bigger? Why does one impact matter more than the other? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. The judge should also be asking these questions too, because once you lay out a reason as to why an impact of mass poverty outweighs their impact about climate change, because you compare the 2 impacts that even if climate change is bad, it's non-unique, which means the poverty is not. We can still pull people out of poverty in the world of the AF. That would be an example of impact comparison. Compare the 2 impacts. Why does one come before the other? The fourth is signposting. For those of you who don't know what signposting is, it is explaining to your judge where you are on the flow. So for example, let's say you do 40 seconds on your case. Extend our argument about climate change. Climate change is irreversible, and the Belt and Road Initiative would surely increase climate change because China has very, very bad fossil fuel standards, and they will continue to export that across the globe. Their infrastructure projects are not made with health regulations, which is going to increase climate change and kill millions of people. Next, I am going to go on to their argument about how the BRI is good for local economic development. That's signposting. It's the delineation between the argument and the extension, and moving on to the next argument, right? A flow judge is just someone who votes on arguments on the line by line. Excuse me. In the top three, in the top right-hand corner of your screen, we have three flow judges. Obviously, they typically vote together because flow judges share the same philosophical views about debate. And yeah, should be pretty straightforward. Excuse me. So, a couple notes. The majority of flow judges ignore cross. Don't do anything stupid in cross, don't make any concessions, but truth be told, every flow judge I have seen in public forum literally goes on their phone and answers Facebook Messenger in Crossfire. I wouldn't worry about it too much. The second is that the majority of flow judges are more concerned with your arguments rather than your tone, and this is an important one. In front of a lot of flow judges, even if you are excessively passionate, even if you are maybe even a little rude to a certain extent, if you're making good arguments, a lot of the flow judges are not going to care. And the truth is that that's generally true across the board. In terms of evidence ethics, flow judges are going to care a lot more about evidence ethics because they know what to look for. They know what flawed evidence looks like, whereas a lay judge is just going to assume what you say is true and probably not end up calling for evidence at the end of the debate. Next, on to a flay judge. Non-negotiables with flay judges. Number one, let's not use buzzwords. What I mean by buzzwords are non-unique, turn, disadd, impact, weighing, prerequisite, magnitude, all these words. We should not use these words in front of flay judges because it could confuse them. The second is slow down. When we're in front of a flay judge, we want to slow down, but maybe not to the extent of which we would in front of a lay judge, because this person has some debate experience, but we should still slow down from what we're reading in the flow. The very important part about flay judging for a judge like Jill Katz, my mother, who has minimal training, would be signposting. Obviously, I explained what signposting is earlier, but that's going to be really, really important. You're going to want to tell the flay judge where you are, what you're arguing, and why it matters in the debate round. Impact extensions are huge in front of flay and lay judges because at the end of the day, lay and flay judges are just going to vote off the bigger impact and what they perceive to be a bigger problem. If you have an impact extension that is really, really bad and leads to climate change, etc., that is going to maybe win you the round, even if the warrant that you have extended is not true. Flay judges will also typically listen to cross very intently and sometimes may even decide to vote off crossfire. So in front of a flay judge, crossfire is vital and your attention must be there at all times. This includes grand crossfire. Also, a flay judge is typically someone who has some form of debate experience, maybe an older speech kid, maybe they have a child in debate, maybe they're a local volunteer at their university and they go to like Emory and they're smart. I've had that happen before. So those are the kind of flay judges you're going to have. A flay judge is going to try their best to vote off arguments made, but sometimes will vote on rhetoric and crossfire and make random decisions, so impact extensions are very, very important in front of flay judges. Finally, the notorious lay judges. Some non-negotiables in front of lay judges. Number one, go as slow as you can. Legitimately, read a 600-word case. As slow as you humanly can. You want the lay judge to absorb every word of your narrative. You want them to understand the entire picture. You want there to be no doubts in their mind that you are going too fast. Absolutely no buzzwords, no turn, no non-unique, no disadd. Everything is defense to lay judges. If the argument you're going for on their case is a turn, don't phrase it as a turn. Explain their argument and explain how their argument is wrong and how you've turned their argument successfully. Eye contact is vital. When you are on Zoom, I am looking directly at my Logitech camera right now. I want you all to be doing the exact same thing in front of your lay judges. Lay judges are going to be very intently focused on the screen and how you speak. Look directly at the camera. That eye contact is going to be vital. In person, it's the same way. Also, the most important part about lay judges is impact regurgitation. Continuously tell the judge why your impact matters, how your impact matters, and why it's the most important impact in the round. That will win you every round. Also, lay judges are random. Notoriously, they will vote on anything from arguments in cross to arguments themselves. You need to be 100% focused for the entirety of this debate round and paint a story for your lay judge and tell them why your side matters more. Lay judges also typically are people volunteering their time, parents with no debate experience, or local university students who have no debate experience or knowledge whatsoever. And the important thing about lay judges to note is they probably don't want to be here very much, but they just want to get out of the round and leave. With that being said, don't let that stop you from making arguments, but just take it with a grain of salt that they do not want to hear you argue. They just want to hear the points that you have. And you need to make those points abundantly clear throughout the debate. And if you do that, you should be good to go. So, I would like to break up different regions as to how lay judges operate. I gave a lecture on specific judge adaptation in the East Coast. I don't really know a ton about the West Coast lay judges. That would probably be a Dr. Thiele question. But we have attended a lot of Florida tournaments this season. So in following seasons, because judges are typically from all over in the Zoom format, East Coast judges are notoriously bad. They will not listen. They will put in headphones. They truthfully don't care. Lay judges in the East Coast, and I think the same can be said about the West Coast, have extreme side bias. And what I mean by side bias is that they are going to stick to one side the entire debate round. There have been judges in the past that I have, in out rounds and even in elims, flipped a specific side because that judge has voted neg 4 times. That judge has voted af 4 times, right? And even recently, Sahana and Addy had a judge in elimination rounds at a tournament that strictly voted neg every single time. They voted neg 6 times. So obviously the strat there would be go to neg, and we would guarantee ourselves a ballot, even if we lost the line by line of the debate round, because this judge has a clear side bias. That is why scrolling down and determining paradigm history is so important, right? So if we go to Tyler Katz's paradigm, I wish I had a better example of this. Let's go to Jill Katz's paradigm. Maybe that's a good example, right? So Jill Katz is obviously a judge, right? Jill Katz has judged 6 debates at the Tradition tournament. She's voted neg 5 times. So maybe there is some side bias that my mom may have. In front of a judge like this that has consistently voted negative and only voted affirmative once, I would pref the negative side. Would I flip neg? Not entirely sure. I'd probably still speak second, but certainly I would be prefing the neg side based on how many times she has voted negative so far. With that being said, West Coast judges are no different. There are West Coast judges, especially in the West Coast, because they're notoriously liberal, and that's not a bad thing. But for example, on the Medicare for All topic, West Coast judges were notoriously AF side bias because lots of people are liberal in California. It's the most liberal state in the country, and those individuals are going to vote for Medicare for All because it's a liberal stronghold policy. Take into account that political bias and exploit that. Anyone have any questions about how to adapt? Obviously, if you have any questions after watching this lecture, I would encourage you to ask me questions specifically on Slack, and I would love to answer them for you. Thank you all so much for listening to this judge adaptation lecture, and the most important thing is to have fun when you're debating. At every level, regardless of the judge, your judges want to see you having fun. They want to see you enjoying debate, they want to see your passion, and they want to see you grow. Good luck, everyone. If you have any questions, message me on Slack.